Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Big Bad Development Diary.
Tuesday night recap, debrief, autopsy from Paul and Dan on progress on the Big Bad.
That's right. That's right. Tonight we will be covering the state of the project. You may detect that we are a little toasty tonight. We have just gone through a lot of stuff for this project, so lots to talk about there. For our deep dive, we'll be announcing the next group of contestants on the show. Our celebrity group, in fact. So some exciting, recognizable names.
One of them, sure, yeah.
And we'll be doing a character highlight on Hadraad Hellfist, our half-orc monk character. So...
Punchy. He's punchy just like us, Paul.
He's punchy like us. All that and more on the Big Bad Development Diary. So, Dan, as usual, I'm going to ask you to recap for folks who are just tuning in. What is the Big Bad?
I'm glad you asked, Paul. The Big Bad is our upcoming tournament competition D&D program that will be released this fall sometime, in which we have a number of different recognizable D&D streaming groups go through the same session with us as co-DMs, get scored, there's a leaderboard, and at the end of the season, someone gets declared the best tournament D&D player online. That's the Big Bad.
Awesome. Yeah. I've heard it likened to esports for D&D.
A little, it's interesting. We started talking about that, but of course, I think the esports we've heard about has been, it's often player versus player, right? Mm-hmm. What we have going on is we have player versus us. Right. Specifically, players all versus me.
but teams versus teams, there's a leaderboard, and there will be a champion. One team will be declared champion, the best group. So there will be a winner.
Yep. I think that's a good comparison, and I think with our kind of, it's interesting because we have pretty deep experience with a bunch of different iterations of D&D over the years. Tournaments used to be a much bigger thing in the 70s and 80s when that was kind of the only way to get out of your house and interface with people that you didn't know in D&D. And I personally feel that this is the best platform context to show off a competitive D&D type thing. So we're getting really good reactions from it. It's kind of, delving into our past experiences a lot. And I think this is coming together super well.
Excellent. All right, so let's jump into the state of the project and talk about what we did this past week for the Big Bad. So, this has been a busy week for the Big Bad.
It has.
To put it lightly, this has been a big week.
Yes.
We
now have 150% more episodes in the can than we did when we last spoke last Tuesday.
That's right. We filmed 3 episodes over the course of 2 days.
The last 72 hours.
Yeah. We had two shoots back to back on Saturday.
Yeah.
That was intense.
Yeah. That's possibly that might have been the most intense weekend at D&D I've ever experienced in my entire life.
The funny thing is, I was super nervous about it coming up as I was really building myself for this is going to kill me, this is going to wreck me, I'm going to be dead. Will I have enough energy by the end of the second episode? But frankly, I think going to conventions has really prepared me for this. Because it felt a lot like going to a convention, right? I had barely... I'm being told my audio is low again. Why does this setting not want to stay? Okay. Hopefully that's better, folks. Thank you, William.
Thank you, William.
Okay. So
Thank you, William!
Wait, I totally turned that setting on the wrong input. Hang on. Okay, now it should be better.
Okay, yeah.
So, the reason this happens, of course, is that when we shoot for the big bed, I have to literally remove the microphone from my studio here, bring it over to the set, change all the settings, and I guess they get lost on the transition back and forth. So, hopefully when we're done shooting the big bed, this will stop happening to me. Or maybe it'll actually sink into my head to remember to check that before a show. That would be nice.
I have said multiple times. So back in my days growing up on the farm, we would do. Did I already say this last week? Am I just saying the same damn anecdote all over again? Anyway, I'll just jump to the chase. We'll have this down perfect right when it's time to stop. We'll have this process down completely shaved off and ironed down right when it's time to be done.
Okay, so how's it like a convention? So 4-hour shoot, 4-hour game, right? Two back-to-back with barely an hour in between to shove some food down my throat. Kind of ate some junk food. I think I had pizza, right? So the energy level basically is the same, right? And the whole thing, I noticed this. So we had 2 shoots on Saturday. We had 1 shoot on Monday morning, actually. So it's across a 3-day period. And we had our own show. We had our normal talk show on Sunday, so it wasn't like we got a break.
Right.
It was all D&D all weekend.
Totally.
And so basically spent 3 days thinking about and playing D&D and talking to people about D&D. Had very little sleep. Ate not well. And then come Tuesday morning, I'm sleeping late and I'm just wrecked. This whole day today, I've just been recuperating.
I agree.
Feels like a convention to me, man.
I think like Monday, like last night I was trying to log into something and it took me 5 attempts to get the password right because my fingers were just not doing what I wanted them to do. And I was trying more and more careful. I was like, nope, didn't get it. Did that. My fingers were just not happening.
That's funny.
With what I wanted. I'll say that on my end, disinvited artist Isabella Garbani has really been helping here with meals and stuff. So I've actually been eating pretty well thanks to her generous assistance. On the other hand, we have a 4-hour shoot, but we also have setup and breakdown time that's outside that.
That's true.
So at least on my end, I have a checklist, and I have the less amount of stuff to set up. But I have a checklist that I actually have to get started 2 hours in advance of the shoot. How much setup time does it take? When are you starting with your setup before a shoot, Paul? I don't even know how long it takes.
That's a great question. Let's see. So we had, the best way for me to time it, honestly, is Monday morning. Now, it depends on how much I've broken down from the last shoot. So, for example, one of the things I have to do is block out all my windows with these big window blockers I made so that I can get complete darkness on the set. I set those up Saturday morning, and I did not take them down across the 3 days.
I see. Okay.
They're just going to be up. Okay. Fine. We won't have any sun in that room for 3 days straight. Who cares? So there's some things that I can do once when you have multiple shoots, and I can just leave it. But like Monday morning, I got up. I was probably, we had a 10 a.m. call time. And probably around 8 a.m. is when I'm starting to really get things together. Although, frankly, I found myself, I think, on that one, maybe just because I'd done it 3 times in a row, but by that time, I think, I was in place, everything was ready to go a full half hour early, and I was like, there's nothing left for me to do, everything's good.
Gotcha. I haven't had, I'm getting more efficient at it, but I haven't had a whole half hour in my schedule. So like for me, like a 4-hour shoot is actually like about 7 hours of work because I got to start my checklist 2 hours in advance. Jeez. Then there's the 4 hours, and then there's like an hour wrap up, afterwards of cleaning up and saving files and stuff like that.
You're talking about everything from to the point where you've uploaded your data and you're 100% done. Not quite. No, that takes a whole separate day actually for the upload process. Yeah, because literally we are 5 minutes late to start this stream tonight because I was watching my transcoder complete the second of those 3 episodes. And that's just chewing up my CPU over here, and I was like, I gotta let this thing complete. So I will be processing data for a while yet.
Yeah.
Anyway, we have really gone down a long road here. Obviously, we're turning this once again into our therapy session for the work we're doing.
Yeah.
I don't think our viewers care about that. What they want to know is, who did we film with, right? That's what they want to know.
We filmed with a whole lot of people, Paul. I'm not sure whether I can remember everybody. Let's just focus on one group, Paul.
Excellent.
Because I'm not sure that my mental capacity is strong enough to deal with all of them at once.
Great. So that's what we're doing. We are devoting our entire deep dive to our one of those three groups who called themselves the Hoard Takers. So, Dan, who are the Hoard Takers?
Well, the Hoard Takers are a group that they just came up with their name last week. So we were they were being put together up until just a couple of days before we shot. As a matter of fact, the main thing is that the team is led by the founder of Dwarven Forge himself, Stefan Pokorny. Mm-hmm. So obviously, as you know, as viewers will probably know, Dwarven Forge is our official sponsor. They provided all of the miniature terrain for our setting that impresses everybody on the Big Bad. And, of course, Stefan Pokorny sculpted much of that terrain and founded the company and things like that. And I met him a number of years ago to start having a contact with him. So we didn't know whether he would be, willing to actually appear on the show as a competitor. He's an old school guy, right? When he runs games himself, he runs first edition stuff. So like a number of people on the show, there was a little bit of back and forth about was he comfortable playing with 5th edition, or did he feel like he'd have a disadvantage about that? But Stefan generously agreed. I think there was a point where I was like, well, it's going to be competitive and there's going to be other teams, and I could kind of see his energy level rising of wanting to get in on that and wanting to show off his admittedly really great D&D player skills. So Stefan agreed to be the lead of the team for what became the Hoard Takers.
Yeah, the energy level that they brought to the table was something to behold, to be honest.
Yeah.
Before we get into our reaction to that group, though, I do have a clip here. Actually, it turns out the entire makeup of his group was leaked a little bit last week on the Dwarven Forge live stream. I say leaked, but of course, actually, they contacted us and asked us if it was okay, and we said, yeah, go ahead.
Right. Yeah.
But anyway, I have a clip here. From that stream of Nate Taylor of Dwarven Forge talking to Stefan Pokorny about the Big Bad and who's going to be on the team and their anticipation of the show. Shall we watch that together, Dan?
I would like to see that, Paul.
Great. Let's take a look.
They're going to record us running through some crazy gauntlet type, adventure that they have many teams assembled that are going to all try them. So it's like a tournament, and then they're going to, like the tournament, they're going to grade them and see who does the best and who's the winner. Well, so they asked me to assemble some people.
Who's on your team?
I got Luke Gygax, Elisa Teague. I got James Stack Track Keleher. Richard Radnay, who always used to go to Gen Con with his New York crew and win the trophy every year. And then it's me and Ann.
Nice.
We're gonna play 5th edition. We're gonna play. We gotta learn 5th edition.
You sort of know 5th edition.
We're brushing up on it, and I think we can handle it. We got a good team.
Yeah. And the premise is it's 2 DMs. So one of them is the DM that's like the referee DM, and the other one plays the big bad guy. So there's a nemesis. So you're gonna have like one guy that's role playing at you and thwarting you. He's the antagonist, and the other was the DM that kind of is arbitrating the whole thing. And they have a whole bunch of they've got some big teams going through. So it's gonna be interesting to see how you rank up. We should bet on it. Should we put some? Should we have a pool?
But of course we're win, and so if we bet, bet on the A team.
Woo! What's the name of your team?
Woo! We don't have a name yet.
The Woo.
I love those guys, and I love their energy, and that was the funny thing is that was actually happening while we were on this show last week. It was simultaneous with this show, we found out about that, and we had to go track down the recording on Twitch of that. And we were ourselves learning who was on his team from that.
That's right. Actually, I remember at the very end of this show last week, we sat down and co-wrote the email. No, I'm sorry, it was the beginning. It was before, as we're about to stream, we're like, they want to talk about it on their stream. Should we let them? Okay, let's quick compose an email. Tell them it's okay. Yeah, so it was literally happening at the same time as we were on last week. They were talking about that.
Which was great.
As you mentioned,
Luke,
wait, was this Luke Gygax is going to be on his team?
You saw it. There was an email from you, and I'm like, what the what? Who the what now? Yeah, that clip is actually how we discovered that Luke Gygax was playing on his team.
Yeah,
and
we knew a couple of the members. We knew a couple of the members because we had been talking to them about it, but we didn't know the full makeup of his team, and that's the first we ever heard of it. So, woo!
Right. So I'm like, okay, all right. Stefan decided to assemble a dream team of D&D players. That's how they're going at it. Okay. All right.
Let me tell you. I think it was Sunday. So Sunday, we shot that. We shot their episode late Saturday night. Sunday morning, I wake up and I look at my phone and I see a notification from Twitter that says, Luke Gygax and Elisa Teague are now following you. And I went, oh my God, I just won Twitter.
Well, okay. Now I'm gonna point out that likewise on Sunday, if you go to our so on Twitter we have Twitter /Wandering DMs, and then you can find our individual links. But Sunday, Luke was giving me crap. Luke was trash talking me as the adversary, saying like I really had a great time shooting for the big bad and putting the beat down on Dan in particular. So I was like, I think I just won Twitter.
They were a great group to play with. I definitely distinctly remember. I remember Luke pulling out some tactics early in the game that you were just like, oh no, they have a ringer.
That was the most comprehensive plan of anybody that's come in, and I was like, oh man, and F me.
And talk about the energy. Here's the crazy thing. About the energy. 3 of the members showed up in full costume in our episode. In full costume, and this. The funny thing is, like, I was so so focused in on running the game and making sure I did everything right, get the tech right, do my job right. I was so focused in on that, and probably a little burnt from having already done it once that day. There's a lot of details of that game that didn't sink in until after the fact. The fact is, the 3 of them came cosplaying as the characters they were playing. Dan,
right.
Dan, D&D celebrities have cosplayed characters we created.
It's one thing to like make your own character and come in with something you developed, but they totally interfaced with stuff that was not of their creation. That there was just a menu of lists that came in, and they really picked up on the stuff that we had invented and came in and brought their own take on it and their own twist on it and complete costuming, including facial hair. It was. You're right, and honestly, you know what? We're both juggling enough. I didn't realize that until Paul just told me a minute before the show. He's like, you realize that they had their facial hair set up like the characters, and I was like, oh my God, you're right. I didn't even think about that during the shoot. I had other things on my mind. Holy crap! You're right. That was amazing. They had props, they had equipment that was on top of just being like really great players. They had the whole ball of wax.
It was something. It was something. And honestly, I'm almost a little embarrassed that it took me this long to recognize all that and internalize it and go like, I should have been thanking them up the wazoo at the beginning when they connected to say, oh my gosh, I can't believe how much you're bringing to the table here. This is great.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so much. It's taken us like two looks at it to digest everything that they did.
Yeah.
So
Stefan,
Luke,
Stefan, Elisa, and Carlton were in costume, and as Gradina the dwarf. Hats off to the wonderful portrayals that they were bringing. I was also really impressed by Richard Radnay's playing the paladin, the gnomish paladin.
Right.
That was great performance there.
He really committed to that. He really very much committed to that. Not a lot of people pick that character. We'll talk about him on another day. But he really to date, Richard is definitely the standout Ragnar player. I will say that he really committed to that character.
I agree. And James Keleher brought some very much needed, clearly strong 5th edition knowledge to the table.
I was going to say that.
Yeah, a lot of good advice from him, and not just with his own character, but advising the other folks who were less used to 5th edition. That helped a lot. I think helped a lot.
And in a great coaching way, we've seen players in the past that were overwhelming about that kind of like advice type of thing, right? You can do a little bit of coaching to help someone, and I was, James, of course, some of the other people are more old schooler, they're more familiar with 1st edition, and I thought James brought a lot of expertise and a lot of wisdom to advice about playing 5th edition, and I think that he was really a standout player on that team as far as making them really tactically rock solid. And afterwards, I think James in particular said, I think I saw in an email, said, this was a different experience for me, and I really got into the tournament play of it. And I could totally see that during the game that James Keleher was a major rock on the Hoard Taker team. They were lucky to have him.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it was a great group to play with. It's so funny how quickly that becomes just a blur of like, did that happen? Did I really run 2 games? Did I play? Did I just really just DM a game for Luke Gygax? Did that happen?
It did. I was there, and I can confirm that happened. And we also have a half dozen recordings of it happening too. Just in case there's any question about that. No, I totally agree. That was a real treat for us, and they're so talented in so many different ways that maybe I didn't even know about to begin with, and we were really lucky to have them. A couple things that happened with that was, so obviously Stefan is the founder of Dwarven Forge, and we've been interacting very closely with Dwarven Forge about our terrain and our setup and advice about the design and the camera work to make it look as good as possible and things like that. Mostly we've been interacting like on a day-to-day basis with Eric and Nate over there.
Right.
And so I had to get them to promise, we've shown them everything. So I had to get them to promise not to reveal the scenario to Stefan. And get them to sign a blood oath in that regard. And Nate and Eric came through, and Stefan did not actually know what was happening. There were a couple of surprises, right? There's a couple of surprises that happened that clearly Stefan was not clued in advance to.
Now you'll see in the clip we just saw. You'll note Nate was the other one in that clip, and I shortened that clip for us. But if you go dig up their live stream, there is they actually talk about that. I think they actually discussed that at one point where Stefan mentions, and they're using the terrain, and Nate says, they've got a really great build, and Stefan says like, you put that together for them. I have no idea what you gave them. And Nate did a very good job of kind of dodging the question and just complimenting the build. They have some good stuff. Don't worry.
Nate's a great DM on his own. I think that he ran a live stream game this past weekend himself, and so Nate respects the craft of DMing, and he's a high end DM on his own, and I'm not surprised that he knew how to handle that.
Excellent. Yeah. So that was a hell of a game. That was a hell of a game.
That was great. I'll say, one thing. So that having been the second game on Saturday of our doubleheader, there was at least one thing in the first session on Saturday that I made a mistake on running the villains, and I was kicking myself. It worked out. I think I recovered, and I think I did okay. But there was at least one mistake that I think people are going to pick up on in the session before them, and I was kicking myself. But then in the middle, I was like, you know what? I needed that. I needed a warm-up game to come in totally hot, right? Totally hot, warmed up, practiced, know what the risk problems are for me. And I'm really glad coming into session B with Stefan and Luke and Ann and everybody that I could bring a higher level of competitive play from the bad guys' side. And I was then super thankful to have a warm-up game because I needed that.
It's funny. The nice thing is, I think you have an advantage over me in this regard. Like, if you make a mistake on screen, people get excited about that, right? They're like, yeah, all right, good players, you got it. Oh, Dan screwed up. Ha ha ha, take that. If I make a mistake, screw you, ref. Screw you.
There's times when I'm worried that when the other teams, at some point, other teams are going to find out, and that's the point where I'm a little worried that I'm going to get more chafe.
So we have a topic for a later development diary where we're going to talk about sort of our screw ups essentially. Yeah. And the funny thing is, I've been taking notes here, and I think there's like at least one reasonably good sized rules miss on my end in every episode that is in the player's favor. One thing that I like, at least one, like I can pick out in every single episode, one thing where I'm like, ooh, the people who are sitting there with their player's handbook, like watching the show, are going to be like, oh, he got that wrong. Ooh, the ref got that really wrong. And it's always to the player's advantage. Every time it's been to the player's advantage. So I guess maybe that's a balance. Maybe at least that's a balance factor that each team gets one gimme from the ref.
I think that's a good call. I'm guessing it probably averages out, honestly. I really am guessing it probably averages out. The times when we discuss it afterwards, like I'm always, that is a legitimate judgment call. And for me, it's always been in a gray area. And, maybe someone, previously asked Jeremy Crawford, and somewhere hidden in some niche on the internet is a sage advice response that might be different from yours. But I'm guessing that it basically averages out, and I can watch. I can watch one of those episodes and have it go by and not realize what there was a mistake on your end.
I mean, yeah. The nice thing is, I see daily on Twitter. I guess we should show William's comment here because it's funny. Thanks, William. Yeah.
We love to be hated. That's what we're here for. Yeah. I get extra energy from the hate.
Yeah. So, the funny thing is, there was a really nice Twitter thread a while ago, not that long ago, a couple weeks ago, of Matt Mercer pointing out, like, here are the errors I made in this episode. Just legit rules, misjudgments. And he made a point of, like, saying, you know what? DMing's hard, and it's important that no one get put up on a pedestal. That, like, every DM faces this. Yeah. And then, amusingly, I'm actually also amused by, maybe I won't talk about the specific rule, but there was one rule, actually, for a thing that came up in the Big Bad where I was like, oh, I'm not sure about this. Let me go look it up on the internet. And found two tweets from Jeremy Crawford, one where he states one opinion A, and then a second one where he says, I was totally wrong, it's the opposite B.
Great.
Great.
Wow. I didn't know that. I actually, you hadn't told me that until just now. That's amazing.
It's pretty funny. He even berates himself in it of like, read your own writing, Crawford. What the hell?
Yeah. Fascinating. Fascinating.
Yeah.
Wow. What a fascinating practice this is. I was like, Saturday's like, not everybody in the universe could do this. This is hard.
It's hard. DMing is hard. Whether you're doing it competitively on the internet as a part of a show, or you're just running your home game, screw ups happen. We're human. I think.
I think it's a little. I think it's heightened a little bit for the big bad. The competitive tournament environment is it's not in like in a normal game. Everybody's here to assist everybody having a good experience, I think. But in this, there is an additional thing of they are actually trying to beat other people, and there's an additional tension on both sides about rules arguments, and that itself is part of the show. There's at least some rule argument stuff that goes into the show, as a matter of fact.
We're quite possibly intruding on that future development diary topic, but I don't know. I think we've all had that player, right, for whom getting the rules right is very important.
On the big bad, that's all the players. That's all the players, and they're all experts. and they're all experts, and generally have their own advice shows about how to run D&D properly. Every single one of them, and there's a giant scrum between all of us, yelling at you to get for the rules to go in our favor. Yeah. So that's not, now admittedly, that's not an experience that every DM has to go through. That's a new thing. I think that Paul, maybe you're among the very few people that have ever done that.
Oh gosh. Oh, I'm really kind of terrified now that this show builds up some reputation for me knowing all the rules, and people are going to come at me with like, quick, make a ruling. Go. Although I've made this joke as well, Dan, I'm pretty sure that after the show goes out there, assuming that it does well, I think that you're going to be recognized as the big bad, and people are going to be like, it's the big bad, it's the big bad.
We had you and I met at a video game company, and we had a boss, and actually I think of this principle under his name, actually, the something something principle, and the principle is that would be the best possible problem to have.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Before we get out of the deep dive, I got to say one other thing that happens on the show is we have a roster of characters that are pre-made, and they have backstories, and they have miniatures and stuff like that. But we also give our players a little bit of flexibility to possibly reinterpret them or reskin them or maybe pick another miniature. And so some people have, maybe they've been uncomfortable playing, cross-gender or something like that, or change the name or change the backstory, change the voice. And so we've been, we want everybody to be comfortable, and we've been happy to support that kind of massaging. So when Luke Gygax came on, as usual, everybody that really wants to stick it to me picks the friggin' cleric, right? So Luke, in particular, picked the elven cleric and came at me with the character that was actually inspired by my own character years ago, among other things that I will point out. And so, and I made up a deity when I for that character. And Luke came on and said, "Well, what I really want is I want to have a cleric be a cleric of Heronius. Can I do that?" And we highlighted the character Phalar, and he's of the sun god deity, and he has a magic weapon that turns into lightning. And we both immediately said, what?
War god, you mean, right?
War god, right? Exactly,
not
right.
sun god.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry. And so obviously the answer is yes, right? I mean, we would have to be complete idiots to have Luke Gygax come on and say, "I really want to run a cleric of Heronius from the Greyhawk campaign," and to say anything other than yes. So the answer to that was for this episode, yes, he is a cleric of Heronius. And yeah, I had Luke Gygax coming at me with a cleric of Heronius in what's probably going to be episode 5, so or 4 or whatever that was. So unexpected, little surprise, happy to have that happen. And again, didn't expect the cleric of Heronius coming at me, but I had to pivot for that.
At some point, Dan, we should probably do the breakdown of the popularity of the different characters. Maybe as we get towards the end of these dev diaries and all the characters are out, we can look at how popular each of them has been.
Absolutely.
Because interestingly, I think that particular character ranks pretty high. People really seem to like the cleric of the war god.
Apparently there's a lot of reasons why people are going to come at me with the cleric character.
Yeah, there you go. I'm happy to say that looks like probably all 12 characters will get played over the course of the season. So I'm very pleased that we have the full spread. But that actually depends on the last shoot going the way it's currently planned. No reason to believe it wouldn't, but doesn't rely on that. So things could change. Things could change between now and next week.
Wouldn't be unprecedented.
Yep.
Have to be flexible.
Great.
So, if talking about characters, people can go to wanderingdms.com, click on the big bad, and you'll see the various characters that we've highlighted so far. You can just download their PDFs for all their stats. We've got the links to D&D Beyond, so you can see the entire details of Phalar the Fearless that Luke Gygax ran, or Gradinia Bronzebelt that Ann Carlton ran in the episode we're currently talking about. And feel free to look at that detail. But maybe we should look at another character in more detail today, Paul.
Yes, excellent. Let's do that. Let's jump into our character highlight. Who is this week's character?
This week's character, the fifth one that we're spotlighting, is Hadraad Hellfist, a half-orc monk of the Way of the Open Hand. And here is the Reaper miniature painted by Paul Siegel, which I think looks really fantastic. And this is what, did you get this specially for the show, Paul? This isn't one you had before.
Yep. Yeah. This was one of the last minute paints. The funny thing is I remember painting him and we already knew he was a half orc, and so we knew he was a monk, and so we found this mini and picked it out special for him. Yeah. And in painting it, realized that it's very difficult to paint a bare-chested, muscular male character with green skin and not have it look like the Incredible Hulk. So
Good point.
I chose red instead of purple there for his thing, but yeah.
It's interesting, that actually never crossed my mind. Now, I'm surprised that actually sort of, maybe subconsciously I had that, but yeah, the bright red tunic and the brown pants and stuff like that actually I never consciously had that thought, so well done.
What that he looked like the Hulk? You never thought he looked like the Hulk?
Yeah, I did. That never occurred to me, actually.
Well,
I watched a lot of Hulk stuff, and that it never really pinged me. It's nuance. It's got some nuance to it. I think it's well done.
Yep.
So obviously, let's talk about the design of the character and like what we were thinking about when we developed them. So obviously, monks are something that came up in original D&D in one of the supplements. Mm-hmm. It's prominent in the first edition Player's Handbook. At the time, humans only. Only humans could be monks. Nobody else could be a monk at the time. So this is not, so you got half orcs in first edition, okay? You got monks in first edition, but this particular combination is not something that was available in the earliest game. Same for, I think second edition didn't even have monks. I think they removed them from the game for second edition. I think from the core rules. Yeah, it might have come back in a supplement, but I think in the second edition Player's Handbook, I don't think that's an option. They actually made a big thing about changing the campaign world to remove, I think, assassins and monks actually from first to second edition.
Here's a very very random trivia question for you, Dan. What famous D&D celebrity is actually has the monk as their favorite character class?
I have no idea, Paul.
Here's a hint: they've been on our show.
On our talk show or on the Big Bad? Yeah, you have
on our talk show. On our talk show.
On our talk show.
On our talk show. Yeah.
Is it Mr. Salvatore?
It is indeed R.A. Salvatore.
He nailed it.
Loves monks. Loves them. All right. Anyone who's played the Demon Wars RPG will discover that, in fact, that's all the character classes are variations of monk. Demon Wars very prominently features monks.
Right.
He is actively currently playing a monk in the game we're playing together right now.
Okay. All right.
He loves him some monks.
All right. Okay. Fascinating. Yeah, the Demon Wars. Yep, I get it. Now I see that. Yep, that makes a lot of sense. Not, so in first edition, couldn't be races other than humans. Now, you and I were playing in a game, and maybe just for a couple of months, we made characters in second edition, and then we transitioned at the moment when third edition came out. Mm-hmm. And among the things that third edition did is that they just wiped out all those restrictions. on races and classes. So now just anybody, any race could be any class, totally open field. And we had a friend at that moment that the moment 3rd edition came out, immediately said, I'm making a half-orc monk, right? The greatest violation of 1st edition principles is monks could only be human, and half-orcs had the greatest restrictions on classes. They could only be a fighter, thief, or assassin. I think that's it, nothing else. And so he kind of picked like, oh, great, I have a completely free open field. I'm going to make a half-orc monk in our 3rd edition game. I'm going to name him Windstick Devil. And as an old timer, I was slightly offended. Like, here we go. Of course, remove the limitations. Now we're going to see every kind of crazy mishmash of whatever that doesn't make any sense. And our friend who Windstick started playing him, and in a fairly short amount of time, like a couple of weeks, he couldn't join the game anymore. And I apologize because I can't. Because I don't know. He didn't name Windstick after your server Binky Stick, did he, Paul?
Oh, no, you're watching the comment.
Coincidence.
Sorry, this is. I thought I was sneaky and just got that comment into the chat without you noticing that. Damn it. I am responding to Josh's comment here. What would you call that? Hot monkey love. A title of a Binky Stick song, in fact. We are so far in the weeds on this one. Boy. Let's not talk about that. Move on.
Get that out of it.
More about monks.
I mean, we said on Sunday. I don't even read the chat in the first place, so it's really irrelevant whether that's there or not.
All right. So tell us about Windstick.
So my point is that when our friend left and abandoned Windstick, I took him on as a henchman. Is that I'd warmed up to him enough that I had the one character named Haragar who was the cleric, and I was a little bit I felt a little bit crippled only running one character. So I took you had to take a special feat in 3rd edition to get official henchmen. So I took the feat because I wanted at least a second voice that I was playing, and I actually adopted the half-orc monk Windstick and made him my second character, and then was doing a whole lot of, two voices arguing with each other, giving orders to Windstick and him in a surly fashion barely following through on it. And I I wound up running this half-orc monk kind of accidentally for a number of years, and I became really, really fond of him. So when we made this when we were making characters for the big bad, I was like, I kind of want him their half-orc monk back. I like that so much. I want to see this again.
So what we're saying here, Dan, is that all of the characters in the big bad are you reliving past glories. Is that what we're saying here?
We're not saying that's not what happened.
I want to know about this gnomish paladin you played, but we'll save that.
I never played a gnomish paladin. That's not allowed in 1st edition. That's clearly morally offensive, and I'm unhappy that we had to do that. So
interesting thing to note about making a half-orc monk in 5th edition is this kind of an unusual choice, right? Like let's look at the stats here. I think because you and I we were talking to somebody about this recently, about how the racial bonus for monk in terms of stats goes to strength.
Yeah,
and
racial bonus for half-orc.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Racial bonus for half-orc is to strength, and that when we first made this character, you went all in on bumping up the strength very high.
Right.
And then we actually got a lot of feedback from playtesters that actually that was a poor choice for a monk.
Yeah.
Which is true because the stats that they want to be high are, one, they want dexterity to be high because actually monks can use dexterity for their to hit bonus, and amongst many other monk abilities, I think are I know I'm not remembering. I think there's some other stuff that's dex based for monks. And then wisdom. They want high wisdom because that's the save for a couple of different monk abilities. Is wisdom.
There's an interesting, slightly complicated interaction of the abilities, specifically, like you're saying, strength, dexterity, and wisdom, about how they interact with the monk abilities. And so, as a result, you're right. Hadraad here, we get the most reactions from our player groups in advance, saying that they wish that we had edited this character a little bit, and we did. We wound up editing this character a bit to try to satisfy some of those critiques that we were getting. And I think it's arguable. I think what I did to begin with wasn't insane. Of like he's got the strength racial bonus. Why not capitalize on that? So I think what the thing is AC, the armor class, benefits from both dexterity and wisdom. So they both feed into it.
Right.
You're right. For attacks and damage, it's an or. You can use either dexterity or strength for your melee attacks and damage. Your wisdom goes into the saving throws, such as this guy's stunning attack. But on the other hand, you've got an ability called Deflect Missiles that only uses dexterity, nothing else. So there's kind of this interesting balance here, and you can see that where we ended with the bonus is +2 to both strength and dexterity, +3 for wisdom is what we came up with. And to me, I feel like that kind of actually wasted the racial strength bonus, because now your strength and dexterity are the same. It doesn't even matter.
I don't know about that. What I like about this character is that essentially what you end up with is a very well-rounded character. And furthermore, the bonuses to strength, having a couple of points in strength for this character are really interesting, because we kind of doubled down on that by giving this character the magic item of the gloves of swimming and climbing. Right.
Which you see on the miniature is the hand wrapping. So we're interpreting these as magical hand wrappings that work like gloves of climbing and swimming.
Right. So the why I bring that up is that, of course, swimming and climbing are both ultimately athletics checks. That is a strength-based skill. So and what I like about this character is that combines with the very high speed, monks being the fastest character to move across. That this character and let's face it, right? Monks are known, right? Not really known as ranged combatants, right? They're close up and personal. They want to get into hand to hand. And here we have a character who can really just tear across the terrain, right? He can swim, he can climb, he can move really fast. And close that distance so he can get in there and start laying waste with his hand-to-hand combat. He's by far the fastest character on the team. He has a 45-foot move rate. Most characters are only 30 or even 25. So he's the speedster on the team. Somebody else has a 40-foot move rate, but he's got highest move rate, most maneuverable. Very athletic. Doesn't wear any armor, but he still has mid-range armor. Actually, he's in the middle of the pack on armor. Right. He's in the middle of the pack on hit points, so he's pretty burly. And we did take, since we had 3 of the 6 teams all critiqued his stunning attack saving throw, we dialed down his strength a bit so we could dial up his wisdom a bit, and thereby try to optimize his stunning attack and just put people down with one single punch if he can. I don't know that we've mentioned it yet, actually, anywhere, Dan. But it's interesting to note that for generating the stats for all the characters in the Big Bad, we opted for the standard array, which
good point.
I think is maybe an uncommon choice amongst play groups. But obviously, it seems like the obvious choice for a game when you're talking about wanting complete, consistent balance for the sake of competitive play, right? It just seemed like the most obvious thing. Would just use the standard array. Now you end up, because of the racial modifiers, you end up with actually some very different looking stats from character to character, depending on where you allocate that standard array. But is interesting to point out that they're all made with a standard array.
That's a good point. And you're right. With the other bonuses, not everybody has intuited that immediately. But that is right. And the other thing is, granted that we had to design a roster of 12 characters one after the other. We didn't want to use complete open field point buy and completely drive ourselves insane with the minutia of dialing that around. So using the standard array made it feasible on our end. And still being fair game for the team-based choices that had to be in front of them.
I think it was a good choice for us. And the interesting thing is that I never would have thought of the standard array. Like my initial gut reaction to standard array would always be like, oh, this is boring. Everyone's going to have the exact same stats. And now, having made 12 characters with the standard array, realize that actually that's not true. Right? There's so many other things that impact your stats.
Right.
That actually standard array still allows for pretty wide variation. Right. So
there's also the level-based ability bonuses, right? So every couple levels in 5th edition, you get to add stuff. So I was going through, and there's also custom where the +1 on this level go to. So they wind up being something different as well.
Yep. Likewise, you might end up with some magic items that affect your abilities.
Yep.
Definitely.
Good point.
Abilities
Good point.
in 5th edition, abilities are less set in stone than they
Good
were
point.
in older editions.
Good point. Good point. The other thing I'll say about this character, so not having armor, in an attempt to, I don't know, sort of be hardcore, and be a little bit old school, we are using the 5th edition variant encumbrance system. So you do get the 3 steps of gradated encumbrance of you're at full movement up to 5 times your strength. You're at encumbered up to 10 times your strength, and you're heavily encumbered up to 15 times your strength. Yeah. And some of the characters that particularly had heavy armor, they very rapidly were running up to that first barrier limit point, and we had a debate behind the scenes. And again, if you go back to our talk show, we had one Sunday where we just talked about encumbrance for a whole day. That was the week we were having that debate.
Yep.
And so, as a result of that debate, we did try to arrange characters so that nobody was encumbered. They were all at their full move rate. Yep. But in exchange for that, we had to get rid of a bunch of equipment on different people. And in fact, Luke on that show on Saturday called that out on his elf character. He's like, "What? I don't have rope. I don't have flaming oil. I don't have a lantern. What's all of my normal adventuring gear?"
Yeah.
But the answer was he was right at his limit before he became encumbered. And what we relied on was other teammates. So the characters that are both strong, basically Hadraad's your canonical example. He's really strong. He doesn't have to wear armor, and therefore he has a lot of encumbrance space for other equipment to help the rest of the team. So it's Hadraad that's carrying a bunch of tools like rope and a wineskin and extra food and probably a whole bunch of other tools that I'm not even thinking about. But on top of all the other stuff, Hadraad has a bunch of miscellaneous equipment to help out the rest of the team with. And some people have noticed that and some people have not, but the fact that he's really strong, doesn't have to wear armor, and we are using the variant hardcore encumbrance rule means that he's the one kind of helping the rest of the team. What do I have? He's got club dart, hammer, holy water, manacles, mess kit, steel mirror, oil, potion of healing, extra rations, a rope, water skin, and stake, and a holy symbol.
Yeah.
So there's a whole bunch of extra stuff he brings to the table.
Yeah, interesting to note there, I think, that what we gave every character, I think, one uncommon and one common magic item, right? Is that?
Yep, you're right.
Yeah, so they all have either a potion or a scroll, and they all have, some interesting magic item, some interesting uncommon magic item, which, is still not the most powerful thing in 5th edition, those uncommon items. Usually that's your +1 item, whatever. But we tried to toss in some oddities like the gloves in this case.
Which,
I think we've already done the character focus, the character highlight on him, so we don't have to, hide the fact that I think the other character that we're alluding to here is Kaim the Vanquisher, right? The barbarian.
Yes, exactly.
Who's also lightly armored, moves fast, has the right to carry a bunch of stuff.
Exactly.
Right, and strength, and that's our strength-based character, right? That's our high-strength character, so he's ready to
same kind of story. I think Hadraad's has more. The other thing is that Kaim his weapons are heavy. He's got a big great axe, which is pretty heavy. Hadraad, since he can fight with his fist, he doesn't even need that. So he's extra room for more miscellaneous stuff than
Hadraad. Remind me here: is Hadraad high enough level that his natural fist attacks count as magical?
That is correct. He does.
Oh, he does hit that. I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Wow, great. Kudos to Hadraad. That's a pretty good character there. I wouldn't.
Yeah, that is the Kai. I never know how to pronounce that word. See, here I am again. I read it in text. Do you say Ki or do you say Kai, Paul?
Ki.
Okay, so the Ki empowered strikes is what makes his fists count as magical, and he does have that.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Well, great. There you go.
Absolutely.
Yeah, pretty good character. Seen him played a couple of times. I particularly, honestly, remember one playtest where he featured very
well. I was going to say the same.
Yeah,
I was going to say
it's almost too bad that playtest didn't become an episode, because that was that interaction between that playtester and you, Dan, was brilliant. As we'll have to roll that once the series is out. We'll have to roll that story out, because that was a hell of a game.
I think I don't think it's giving anything away. So we have one more team. We have 5 episodes in the can on our end here, currently undergoing editing between us and our editor in Hollywood. We have one more session that's scheduled to run. So I don't think it's giving too much away. That in addition to individual characters, a really good team is going to think about the interactions between the characters.
Yes.
And so that would take some additional thought to think about exactly what grouping of 4 or 5 or 6 PCs you bring to the table.
Yep. I often wonder how much our various teams have thought about that aspect of it, of composition versus personal identification. Right. There's certainly some folks who are choosing specific characters just because they're like, I love being a tiefling, or I love being a cleric or whatever, right? So some players are going to choose just on that emotional context. But I bet,
which is great and makes for a good show. It increases the energy on my end to hate on them.
Yep. But on the other hand, there are some players who I'm sure are having those tactical conversations about what should the overall makeup of our group be, what should our tactics be because due to that makeup. I know for a fact that some groups have mentioned that they took the character sheets and printed them out and ran test runs with them. So, did not expect that. Did not foresee that happening. Yeah.
That is that's not a normal thing for convention tournaments, right? Convention tournaments, you get the characters when you sit down, right? You sit down. Here's the characters you pick on the fly. You have about 2 minutes to decide. There's the decision. But our play groups have weeks or maybe a month to think about, to really meditate on it, and I did not foresee that being part of the metagame.
Yeah, no, we did publish all 12 characters in a handout that was passed to all the groups many weeks before even the first episode was filmed, because we wanted them to have plenty of time to review the characters and look them over and talk about them, and et cetera, et cetera.
And possibly critique them like they did for Hadraad, and give us an opportunity to actually make changes to satisfy our playgroups as well.
Right. That's true. Yeah. So this is a pretty good, honestly, I'm glad that we're doing this, of going through them one by one every week and talking about each character. I feel like we've made a really good stable of pre-gens here, and frankly, maybe we'll just keep using them for subsequent seasons, because they're tight, I gotta say. Like, there's nothing... I've not looked at this group and been like, well, obviously you have to take this character, and this one's junk, don't bring them along at all. There's a few things I would tune down the road, but they're pretty solid. I
like them a lot. I started becoming fond of them on a personality basis for all of them, and it was a really nice process, and I'm actually pretty fond of them. So if they became a regular cast that people I recognize, I would be pretty nifty. I would like that.
The funny thing too is it helps my job a lot. This is anybody who's watched me struggle with this knows that I have learned something about myself in the recent months, that I am truly shit at names, that I can't keep large numbers of names in my head at all. And the funny thing is, I noticed this just talking to my wife about like movies, and I'll be like, "Oh, it's got that guy from that." Like, I remember perfectly what other movies they were in, and I can recognize who they are by their voice, but I can't tell you their name. Oh no, they were in this movie. They were in this other movie with this other person who was in this other movie. But what their names are, I don't know. And it's just terrible, and it's super embarrassing because it always hits me in like parties when I'm trying to introduce people to each other. People I've known for decades. I know your name. I definitely know your name, but gone. the nice thing is I kind of know the characters, so I can just start addressing people by their character name, and I don't have to worry about what was your Hadraad. That's fine. Your Hadraad. Remember that you're Hadraad, and I'll just call you that from the rest of the night.
Yeah, that's what I normally do. You know, when I normally play D&D myself, I've done this for long. That actually hasn't changed for me. Is I always call people by their character name, and I made I made an extra note. I think Sunday. I think it was after. There was a point. I'll just admit this. There was one single point where I addressed Luke Gygax as Luke, and I regretted it. I actually regretted it. I was like, he's not Luke. Well, he's here. He's Phalar. He's Phalar all the time. No matter what's happening, he's Phalar. I made a big, bold-faced note to myself of whoever it is and whatever they're doing, I don't care. I'm going to call him by the character name to make it impersonal. And I extra doubled down on that as of Sunday, just so you know.
Oh, that's great. That's great. It's not personal. It's D&D.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh dear. Yeah. All right. Well, I think that about wraps up our review of Hadraad Hellfist. Do you have anything else to say about him?
That is, we had a lot more energy for that episode than I thought, Paul. Yeah. I was like, I don't know if we can get through 20 minutes of this tonight. But once we get into this, the thing that we're doing is really special, and I'm lucky. I feel really lucky to get to participate in it, and it just fills me with all kinds of energy when we get to talk about this.
Yeah, me too. I'm so glad that we decided to do this dev diary. I love dissecting what we're doing week after week. I hope some of the viewers enjoy it. I hope it'll be an interesting resource to folks once the show is huge. Because I mean, how can it not be? So once the show is huge, people will come back to our YouTube channel and dig up the old dev diaries and be like, oh, to hear them analyze all this stuff. It's an interesting record to have left.
That would be delightful. That would be the best thing ever. Yeah. I'm going to watch the show. I'm going to watch the show multiple times because I watch it, and if anything, it's like it's almost hard for me to watch because it's almost too intense for me. So I'm going to have to watch it multiple times, frankly.
All right. Well, that's our dev diary for tonight. Thank you, everyone, for joining us and listening to our emotional group support here on stream as we get through this crazy project that we've started. Very much looking forward to releasing this to you all. As you can tell here, we're getting through the shoots, so then we're going to get into editing. So there'll be a good chunk of time there post shoot where I don't know. Maybe the energy could dip. So hopefully this diary will help us keep the energy up and just deliver a really, really great show.
Exactly. So, that was the most intense week at D&D that I've ever had in my life that we're just coming off. So starting to get back to being able to be coherent and competent. I'll say, the show is edited when we release it. Maybe something in the fall, maybe October, something like that. It will be on, prepackaged on YouTube. So maybe if you're watching this chat on Twitch, we would encourage you to go subscribe to the Wandering DMs on YouTube so you can get updates when the actual show is released in the fall. So look for it there.
Great. And we will see you back here next week for more updates on the Big Bad. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you then.